start off this video with thanking my fan club, my supporters, all of y'all that be like, oh my god, when's your next video? Like my roommate is like, when you gonna make a video? My other friend was like, oh, I love your videos because it's like therapy. I miss like talking to you and hearing you say these things. And so to all of those people, mwah, thanks for listening. Okay. But this video was like a it wasn't a special request. Like I wasn't gonna go into detail about it, but because my friend was like, where's the long video? That was just a 20-second video. We need more than that. I was like, okay. So I made a video about coping mechanisms and addiction, okay? And I really want to dive into it because today, one of my friends called and she was talking to me about things that were discussed in therapy and how she felt. And, she was just like, I actually had an emotional response in therapy. And even the therapist was like, oh my God, like we've never seen you even get this far. And so she was like, I still need time to process it. And so this is what I told her, okay? And this is really what I tell everybody. Therapy is very necessary, okay? Because it gives you the opportunity to go into a safe space and say those things that you suppress inside of you because you've been told that you can't say these things because it's gonna hurt other people's feelings, okay? Now, the problem with that, okay, is understanding that your feelings are just that. They are part of your self-identity. They are a part of who you are. So when you suppress these feelings, you are, in a sense, suppressing your self-identity, and it leads you to do deviant things because you're not being heard. And so you resort in nonverbal communication, which can sometimes be more deadly than verbal. Well, not deadly, but more harmful than verbal communication, okay? So what happens is we create what is then called these coping mechanisms, which may be, maybe you have a drink or you engaging in some, act of fornication or drugs for the most part, because it's a lot easier to get to and sometimes you can't always find somebody to lay down with, depending on who you're talking to. And that may work for that instance because you're like, you know what, I just need a little time to process this, because RuPaul said it best, like they're just a forbearance. These drugs, these coping mechanisms, they're just a forbearance for your emotions. And so you get used to feeling like I don't need to feel this, I can't do this, I can't be that person, and that coping mechanism becomes an addiction. Because now you need the coping mechanism to suppress your feelings and emotions because you've been told that you can't have an emotional response. But if you've been following my videos, you'll know that what I'm about to say next is you have to learn how to live in your emotions so they can show you what it is that you need to work on and then let them go. Holding on to those feelings creates this negative space because then your imagination, which is a part of your creativity, builds upon these negative thoughts, these negative ideas, and you continually go down this dark hole where there never seems like there's any relief. There never feels like there's ever a way out. And so you continue to feed into your coping mechanism, which becomes your addiction, And so I love therapy because, like I said, therapy gives you the opportunity to go into a space and say the things that you've been told that you can't say. But the reality is that therapy is just the waiting room. That's that first step. Once you leave, yes, take as long as you need to deal with the emotions before you can start expressing them. But the sooner you can start expressing those emotions in the situation that you're in, okay, so you can present that person with where you are at that moment, because when you don't, then you go down this field of, oh, I wish I would have said this, oh, I wish I would have said that, oh, why didn't I do this, why didn't I do that? And then that continues, your creativity fuels into that because you give it a place to go. So that was really my take on coping mechanisms and addiction, and realizing that it is okay to feel and it is okay to express your feelings because that's a part of the process. And I want to add this. My friend was like, well, the first time I did that, the guy she was with punched a hole in this and this and that. And I said, okay, so let's stop for a second, okay? Because at the end of the day, he too had trauma. Okay, when we resort to nonverbal communication, that is because verbal communication has broken down. We no longer feel that verbally communicating what it is that we feel is working. So we go to nonverbal. which is, like I said, way more effective when it comes to communication, but it can also be extremely harmful. So I was like, no. I said, what happened is you then associate the idea that you can't express yourself because people who don't know how to control themselves and express how they're feeling resort to nonverbal communication. That's not your fault. But they want you to take that on, to continue to get you to suppress, because at some point they've been taught that compliance is love.